I want to welcome Trevor Shorte from SongBird Marketing. How you doing, Trevor?
I can't complain. Like I said, a little sleep deprived, but I'm good.
That tends to happen. How old is she now?
Two.
Two. Yeah, that's the no stage, as you were kind of mentioning earlier.
Hmm.
And
And she
speaking
doesn't
of,
want to go to bed. She doesn't want to do anything. But yeah, anyways, carry on.
no, I mean, I think you're getting a lot of firsthand experience around negotiation with unreasonable clients. So,
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
and maybe taking things back to a basic level when you're
Hmm.
at a rudimentary. And it's sometimes thinking about things that way from a startup point of view can be very helpful.
Hmm. Yep. It's nothing
Because
like trying to negotiate dinner with a toddler.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes you can translate that to negotiating difficulty with a client or, even picking the right price and choosing a
Hmm.
strategy. It's all
Yep.
a negotiation, either, how you're going to run your business and how you're going to appear in competition and what's your branding model. And so much thought goes into it. So many startups I know just came with a price, and I'll ask them, well, what'd you come up with that? And they,
You
you know,
shrug. It's like I don't know.
yeah.
It sounded like a good number.
Yeah, and well, I mean, there's all sorts of actual ways to go about picking and finding a right price for you.
Hmm.
And people don't realize how many different types of strategies there are. And this is one of the reasons why I'm really excited that you chose this topic today, and that we can
Well, I don't have enough time to go through all of them, so we're only going to touch on a few of them today.
Yeah, I know. And I started to mention a few in our tweets, and I have a bunch. I don't know. I got 14 in my list,
Hmm.
and it can go on a different, and then you can combine them and make different kind of things. So it depends on the questions. I don't expect you to go through all of them, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put as much information about the ones you mentioned and a bunch of other ones on the blog post with this video.
Okay.
And I've actually searched around and found a really cool sprite pricing spreadsheet where you can punch a number of variables in and it tells you the differences in all of these different types of pricing models. So I'm going to put that on the blog too for everyone who sticks around and registered for this. We'll send that link out. So over
Awesome.
to you, Trevor. What are we talking about with pricing models?
Let me just share my screen here so you can see the presentation. Do, 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 do.
And remember, we like to make this as interactive as possible. So please put your questions in the chat room or in the Q&A window. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions of pricing strategies and how they relate to your business. So please
Mm-hmm.
ask away.
Yeah, I am open for questions whenever you need to. So, I mean, just I can't see the chat right now. So, Craig, you're just gonna have to tell me if there are any that come up. But
You
yeah,
got it.
here we go. All right. So, without further ado, let's talk about pricing strategies. So, really, when you're thinking about pricing strategies, a lot of people, like Craig said, don't know what it is that they're trying to do. They just figure they're gonna have a pick a number and just go with it. But there is actually a science behind doing these types of things. So, let me talk a little bit about myself. I'm with a company called SongBird Marketing Communications. You can see by the sign behind me. We are a marketing and PR firm, and we help entrepreneurs and small businesses with things like branding strategies, social media, anything PR related. Anything that's going to help you build your business. We do content developments, we do sales training, sales strategies, all of those things that you're going to need to know as an entrepreneur to be able to help continue to build and grow your business. We help you with. And I mean, as for myself, I've been doing this in sales and marketing for a long time now. I'm going to date myself a little bit here, but I mean, I've got like over 25 years of doing this. So um, I kind of picked up a thing or two along the way that I figure I could share with the group here, and figure that might be valuable to some people who are just wanting to learn about these things. And Craig and I have been working together for I don't even know how many years now. It's been a while, but
Yeah, wow.
um, yeah, working as a mentor and helping the startup community that Craig has built is something that we at Songbird we do as a regular basis. It's how we help entrepreneurs grow, and how we help people learn how to create for themselves. Is really what it boils down to.
And I had someone reach out to me from one of the Ryerson zones saying that you come in and help mentor them, and it was great that we are having you online. So appreciate all that help you do there.
Yeah. Well, listen, at this point right now, people need all the help they can get because specifically now with what's happening with COVID, all these people who are now out of work are thinking about how they're going to figure out what their next steps are. And a lot of them may turn into start, whatever they had as a hobby, all of a sudden now turns into a business for them. And they can now start to make money off of this thing. Right. And so having knowledge to be able to understand how your marketplace plays into what your pricing strategy and how your revenue model is going to look is always good information. So, what is a pricing strategy? At its core, a pricing strategy essentially is just what you're going to price your products for. The trick though is figuring out, what is your market look like? What are your competitors are doing? And also what your customers are looking for from you, because the customers really are going to be what's driving your pricing strategy at the end of the day, because really no matter what pricing strategy you put, if they're not buying, you're going nowhere, right? So you always want to keep that in mind, that the customers really are the kind of the key to all of this. So when you're trying to develop a pricing strategy for your business, there's three things that you really want to look at. First off, you want to determine your business goals, and by figuring out what is the goal of your product or service. If your product or service is something new that people have never seen before, then perhaps maybe looking at something like launching a new product into the marketplace that's what your pricing strategy is going to be based on. That trying to get as much market share as possible in the beginning. So you may want to look at something like pricing lower than your competitors, or now looking at something that's going to be more value based. That's going to show how your product is better than your competitors, and that's why people should buy from you. But if your goal is launching a new product into the marketplace and get as much penetration as possible, this is what you need to figure out first. A lot of times people who have an existing product and are just looking to gain or increase some market share, there's a couple of different pricing strategies that are available for that as well. And like Craig said, you can combine several different pricing strategies to go for. I mean, right now it depends on who you ask, because if you ask different people, you can get different answers, but there's probably about 15 or 20 different individual pricing strategies that you could actually work with. And I'm going to cover a few of them here. We don't have time to cover all of them. I don't know if you heard me say that earlier, because there is a lot, but I'm going to cover some of the most common ones and then some others that you can look at as well. The other thing goal for your business is to increase your profitability, because really when you're thinking about sales and pricing in general, your price is going to what you're using to drive sales, right? So if you're driving sales to your business, how much profit are you actually making? When you look at your costs versus your markup versus your selling price, those are all things that you're going to have to decide what it is you want to factor in as far as making setting the correct price for your product or service. The other thing you want to do is you want to start taking a really good look at the market and what's actually happening in. Because if you miss the mark with your price, you're not gonna get any sales. It's really that simple. The idea behind looking at the marketplace is understanding what people are actually paying for that similar type of product or service. If it's something new that nobody's ever seen before, you may have a little bit of a leeway in charging and being able to charge it a price that is maybe perhaps premium or higher than what other people will do. But for the most part, if you're going to be if you've got a product and you've got competitors, because most people do have competitors regardless of what product you're selling, you have to understand that what the market is willing to pay for that type of service, you can't go too much farther out of that, because if you do, you're not going to get any sales. No one's going to buy your stuff. And then looking at what your competitors are doing, especially if they've been around for a long time, they may have a better understanding of what the marketplace looks like. So taking a close look at what they're doing is a very good business practice, just in general anyways, to understand how you're going to make your business better. And then the last one I want to kind of touch on is the things that you want to really be taking a close look at when you're talking about pricing strategies is your target audience. Because if you know what the buying habits are of your target audience, you'll be better able to understand what they're willing to pay for the type of product or services you're selling. All right. If they expect your product to be in a high premium pricing zone, then you know what? Go ahead, put your pricing into the high premium zone, maybe even a little lower to see if you can steal some market share. But if they expect you to be a value or economy type brand, trying to put a premium price on that, and they see you as a value brand, those two will never meet. So you need to be very cognizant of how your product is viewed by the target audience or customers that you're trying to attract. So there's really three common pricing strategies when you're talking about. Most businesses follow these, one or variations of all of these three, but they really kind of focus around these three issues. So you've got your customer value-based pricing, you've got cost-based pricing, and competition-based pricing. I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those as we go through this. So the first one on the list, customer value-based pricing. So really, as I was talking about earlier, understanding the value that your customers put on your product is going to help you determine what your price should be. And so if that balance is skewed, you're not going to make any sales. So you need to obviously figure out how to even out that balance or increase the value balance based on the price. Because if the price is low, but you've got a high value, you have a better chance of making more sales as long as your product solves the problem that these people are looking for. It's really what it boils down to. All right. Craig, am I going too quickly here?
No, I think you're going well. I'm just looking at the questions, which aren't relevant just yet. So keep going.
All right. Okay. So cost-based pricing. This is the one that pretty much everybody probably knows, where your product costs. If you're selling a hard cost product, let's say a widget for whatever reason, and it costs $25 to produce, and you sell it for $50, you have a $25 markup. That's your profit. Your $50 is your price, and however many of those widgets you sell it, the $25 markup is going to help hopefully give you some revenue that's going to be able to sustain your business, and that's how you kind of roll. That's typically how, when it comes to product-based things, most product-based pricing strategies work. Obviously, you need to cover your costs because you can't sell anything for less than what it costs for you to make, or else you might as well not be in business. There really is no point in doing it. That said, you may want to do that for a short period of time if you were able to sustain those types of losses based on trying to get into the market if it's really tough to break into. And an example of that would be is if you're trying to go into, and this happens actually a lot with consumer electronics goods, right? So if you're talking about a high-end phone, let's say, for example, Apple pretty much has Apple and Samsung have cornered the market on these. So if you're a new brand and you're coming into this marketplace, how do you break into that? You may have to start to sell a little bit, price your product way less than what those are, but also increase the perception of value to ensure that people will see that you're the better price. But you may be losing a little bit on that because of the fact that your cost is going to be a little higher than what you're selling it for. Right. So you have to weigh that and figure out if that's going to be worthy for your particular business, and if those goals are aligned with the market penetration idea that you're trying to get into and gaining your market share. But at the end of the day, the rule for that is always make sure you're making money, because that's really the whole goal of what it is we're all trying to do here. We're all trying to make some money. We all need to be able to have our businesses thrive, and businesses thrive on revenue. There's no way around that. That's just how business is.
But based on this, keep in mind there's nothing wrong with buying a customer.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on your I guess product and the company and who you're buying and what it is that you're trying to do, because you can entice customers to come your way just with discounts and everything and sales, or if you're trying to compete head to head with a customer on price, you may need to now start looking at some of the other things your product brings to the table. But yeah, you totally could buy customers if you had to.
And when I say buy customers, that's any one of the, you're actually losing money on the sale of a product, you're doing a freemium
Hmm.
model, you're actually, because you're doing marketing anyway. So when I look at, cost plus markup, you're trying to break into a model, you think Gillette or something where I'm going to give the handle away for free or next to nothing, but I'm going to make the money on the blade. So that's what I mean by, depending what you're doing and some of the pricing strategies we're probably going to talk about, you know, uh, your first product doesn't have to be super profitable if you have a plan to get to profitability.
And if you also have multiple products to choose from, I mean, there's such things as called lost leaders. So they have a product that is intentionally low priced in order to get you in the door, and then once you're in the door, they try to sell you other things, right? And I mean, you'll see that in mostly in grocery stores or any type of stores that have the sales on. That they're using that sale as a lost leader and saying, okay, we will discount this price to very much probably near our cost, if not lower, in order to get you in the door. And now that you're in the door, we're going to sell you all this other regular price merchandise, which may have a higher margin for us. But you know what? You're here now, so you're going to shop. Now, that changes slightly with when you're talking about e-commerce versus a physical store, but the concept is still the same.
Great.
And what do we have here? What's going on?
Are you
There
locked?
we go. Yeah, no, I was just clicking on the wrong thing here. And the other thing you want to look at from the kind of the three major ones is competitor-based pricing. This one you see mostly a lot in places like grocery stores or shopping malls. You'll find that a lot of the stores that have similar products are all going to have similar pricing. Why? Because they figure that the price that the customers are willing to pay for is kind of set at a specific level. So now really all they're going to do is now try to compete on service. Now, the one good thing about competitor-based pricing is if you're trying to steal market share from them, you certainly can price your stuff a little bit lower than them and hope and pray that the price conscious customers are going to come towards you. The one problem with that is that if people are willing to jump to you just because of your price, don't be surprised if they jump to somebody else because of their price. And that's something that a lot of people seem to forget when it comes to pricing, because if you price the same or lower than your competitors, they may decide that they want to price lower than you in order to steal back that business. And then next thing you know, you are in what's called a price war, and nobody wins in that scenario, because at that point, it is literally a race to the bottom and nobody wins in a price war. So you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're enticing your customers to try to be lower than you. I mean, the best example is this. I don't know if you guys have ever seen two gas stations across the street from each other. It's ridiculous how they would manage their pricing, because one would change it to a dollar, and the other one changes it to 99.9, and the next thing you know, someone changes it to 97.9. It's great for the customers win, but you just run roughshod all over your margins at that point. Let's click here. So some of the other strategies that you can consider, and we had talked about it before, that there could be as many as 15 to 20 to choose from, but I'm not going to go through all of them today simply because we just do not have enough time for all of that. But a couple of others that you can consider, you can look at what's called price skimming. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with high-end television. So if you were to go to the Consumer Electronics Show and want to buy an 8K TV, well, an 8K TV, it probably costs you $10,000. Why? Because it's still new. They don't have the economies of scale yet for production, but also because none of the other competitors have actually tried to produce one, so that will drive the prices down later, right? So if you look at what the initial price of that television is in the beginning, and then watch it like 4, 5, 6 years later, the price would have completely cut in way less than 2/3, right? And that's kind of how price skimming works. As a strategy, people understand that that's just going to happen. So if they're an early adopter and they pay the full freight for it, they're gonna spend a lot of money on that particular television. Me, on the other hand, I'm one of those what they call a laggard. So I'll wait until the TV is like $100, then I'll go buy it. Because I mean, really, at the end of the day, I don't need an 8K TV. Does anybody really need an 8K TV?
Probably not.
Uh, uh. But they're making them, and they've actually made TVs now that are so thin that you can talk about the curve now and everything else. I'm just like, who needs that? But people are willing to pay the price for it up front, and so it is a strategy that manufacturers use in order to manage their costs up front, because the costs up front are really high, and they can just mitigate that over the course of however many years until the end of that particular product's life cycle. The other thing that this one's always been kind of weird to me. I don't understand how it works, but I mean, the psychology of people's minds is really kind of interesting. For whatever reason, people seem to think that if you end a price with 9 versus 0, it seems to be psychologically a better price. So case in point, $499 versus $500. For whatever reason, someone says, I got something for under $500 at $499, but they're actually paying $499, which is really close to $500. So I'm not sure how that makes you feel better that you didn't spend $500. That part never really computes with me. But there's a reason why anytime you go into any retail outlet, you're going to see prices at $499.99 or $495.99 or whatever. 99 seems to be the number. The one thing that Walmart does well is they've actually figured that they always want to be the lowest price, so they don't actually use 99s. They use 97s. That's their thing, which is really kind of interesting, and it works for them because even that 2-cent difference, for whatever reason, people still think they're getting a better deal at Walmart. I don't understand it. I don't get it, but humans are wired in a way that it works, and there's proof of it all over when you look at the retail landscape.
Yeah, this is a funny one, and I always in my growth hacking class I talk about this, and it's 9s and 7s exactly. It used to be 9s, but Walmart has proven, and the statistic says, and your prices in 9s or 7s.
Yeah,
and
I don't know why 0 seems to be such a bad thing for people, but 9s and 7s seem to work.
I think psychologically we don't want to pay the whole price. So when we see a 0, we feel like we're paying full price, and when we don't see it, we feel like we're getting a discount. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the mind is a funny thing. And the other one I like to point out here, and maybe I'm sorry if I'm spoiling your thunder here, is people something plus something for free. They prefer that versus the two things together. And the example I like to use is people prefer 3 cookies for $1 and you get a free cupcake to 3 cookies and a cupcake for $1.
Yeah, the word free is very powerful. I didn't address this one here, but bundling or buy one get one free type thing, those are very, very popular. I mean, you think about when you go to McDonald's, what did they really kind of create is that value package that you get a drink, burger, and fries, right? All of a sudden the combo is the thing, right? Yep. And if you were to buy those things separately, it would cost you more than if you had bought them together. So they create this combo, and all of a sudden now they're selling combos like crazy because nobody's buying the individual things anymore, which is in their rights actually better for them price wise and on a per unit basis. But how much they actually sell of the combos versus the individuals, it completely blows it out of the water. So the psychological thing that comes with pricing these types of things, it's very interesting when you look at actually how that works. Because I mean, everybody wants to make sure they're getting a deal. That's really one thing as a consumer. Everybody wants to be getting the best price for for the money that they're paying for that particular product or service. Nobody ever says, I want to pay more than I have to. Nobody ever says that, right? So you always want to make sure that your customers never feel that way about you and your product and service that you're providing to them. And so making sure that they understand the value that comes with the price, in my particular mind, is the best pricing strategy. But everybody's got their own thing they need, and every company is different, every product is different, every market is different, and it just really depends on where you're marketing your products and services and who you're trying to market to. The last one I wanted to talk about, and this is also somewhat along the psychological ways as well, but it helps you kind of break up this basically the same product, but put it into tiers so that you can now create additional product lines that you can sell to people. And then now when they get out of one product line, they can move into the other. So case in point, mobile phone data plans. I mean, everybody's favorite thing, because you know everybody loves Rogers and Bell and yeah. Anyways, the data plans that you can buy, let's say a chunk of data for 5 gigs, a chunk of data for 10, and then you can have an unlimited. And if you have all of those 3 things available to you as a consumer, you now can choose a plan that works better for you, for your budget and whatever. And from the provider's perspective, they don't really care which one you buy, right? As long as you buy one of them, that doesn't really matter to them, because it costs the same for them to provide you with unlimited data, 5 gigs of data or 10 gigs of data. The only difference is what it means to your pocketbook. So at the end of the day, that pricing structure or strategy works for companies who do those types of things, where you've got this level playing field. Really, with your cost is always going to be the same. The fiber that they're building and all that's going to cost the same, and all the towers they're putting out, all those fixed costs, they're not going anywhere. So it's how they spread that out in terms of their customer base. That's where they're really making their money in that regard. So let's move on to the next thing here. So here's the $1 million question. Which one do I choose? And drum roll, please. The answer to that question is standard consultant's answer. It depends. And I mean, it may sound like a cop-out, but really at the end of the day, it really truly does depend on your business, your goals, what the marketplace is doing, what your competitors are doing, what your customers want. All of those things together are going to help you decide which is the right one for you. So, I mean, we talk about, what's the market rate? Whoops. What's going on here? I've blown up.
Slides are freaking out.
Yeah. So I can't fix this right now, but the key thing for you to think about is really what is the market rate for your product. Start there. Look at what other people are doing in your marketplace, and try to understand if the customers that they're serving are happy paying that particular price for that product. Because if they are, then there's a good chance that if you've got a similar product, your pricing whatever pricing strategy you're going to use is going to be at least not rejected, right? You have a better chance of finding the pricing strategy that works for you if you're able to really truly understand what it is that's happening in the marketplace. So my final thoughts. Pricing strategies, it's a process. You have to go through it. There's no real silver bullet to really get you where it is you need to go. Like I said, you really need to understand your market, understand your competitors, and understand the value your product and service actually has for people. And when you've got those 3 things together, you pick a pricing strategy that you think is going to align with your business goals, and then try it. If you get nothing but crickets, then you know that your pricing is probably out of line and out of whack. And one thing you'll also find out really quickly is if people start asking questions about your product and then say, no, I don't really want it. And then what you would do at that point is you start asking questions, say, okay, well, what is it about the product that you don't like? And if you start to hear more and more that it's just too expensive, maybe take a look and see if that there's something in your pricing strategy that you can do differently to help work through that. Trial and error, unfortunately, and I hate to tell people this, but it is really true. Trial and error is a really big part of marketing. You have to try something and see if it's going to work. If it sticks, do it and just do that really well. But if it doesn't, change to something different and try a new tactic, try a new strategy, and see if that works for you. At the end of the day, that's all you can do in order to be able to generate traction and sales and revenue for your business, and that's what's going to help you grow, because really, and that's why we're all here, is to make revenue, to help our businesses grow. Now we can do questions.
That was great, Trevor. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about this. And one of the things, uh, Sean Wise keeps saying, when you talk about experimentation, is, here's the formula: ready, fire, aim. Got it? Ready, fire, aim.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
And it's test, test, test. So yeah, marketing is all about doing that. So we do have a question, and it's about, when dealing with personal or professional services like consulting.
You mean like my business?
Exactly. So, retainer versus hourly versus, value based versus project based, and, retainer might be any part of those, I guess. How do you choose which is the right for your business?
We just throw enough crap at the wall and see what sticks. Um, no, seriously. Our customers actually dictate that our pricing model for us, because, well, literally, I'll tell you what we did is we looked at what other marketing companies were charging, and we figured, you know what, we're going to try to charge the same thing and see if that worked. It really didn't for the customers we were trying to attract, because a lot of the things that the large marketing agencies are billing for, they're also talking to billion-dollar companies, $1 million companies. We're talking to entrepreneurs and small businesses. So that really didn't jive for us, because we can't charge $10,000 for an engagement for an entrepreneur who's just decided they wanted to turn their hobby into a business, right? That's not going to sell for us. So what we did was we actually created marketing packages that would fit the budget and the needs for entrepreneurs. So we really looked at our market and our customers and what they needed, and tried to build products that would serve their needs very well. Depending upon the industry you're in, there may be industry standards that you want to try to stick to. Like, say you decided you wanted to create a accounting firm. So accounting firms can work in multiple different ways. They can charge customers by the hour, or they can charge them on a monthly retainer fee. But depending upon the type of accounting services that they're offering, if it's project based, you can you can say, you know what, I'll do your taxes for you, for your business, for an X amount, but that's the only thing I'm going to do for you over the course of the year. The rest of the year, if you want my services, you'd have to pay me on a monthly basis, or we could start a new project. But it really depends on what your customer's comfortable with. And for us, what we did was we created multiple streams in that rate. So, we've got in small business packages available for small business owners what we'll do is we'll teach you what you need to know and then send you on your way. We have project-based things where we'd say, okay, you know what, for this specific period of time, we will do X for you. The project-based ones are usually for media relations and PR work. So, if a company's got a new launch coming up, we would do their PR for them for a 6-month period to help get them that boost that they need. And that's a specific project over the course of a period of time. And then we also have full-on retainer stuff. So where we actually work with clients on a regular basis, which we do with our social media, or our content development. The social media, we would manage social media platforms for our customers. And so we're creating content, engagement, all those types of things. So something like that is going to be on a retainer basis. That's a monthly a monthly recurring cost or sort of recurring revenue for us, because this is what that particular customer needs. So we try to build stuff that our customers are going to need, that's going to help them at whatever stage they're at in their business.
So a lot of times people have a hard time selling their product and there's or service. And a tool I like to recommend is, price anchoring when you're selling, how can you apply price anchoring to your service-based business, to give you a value-based pricing, or to instead of to move away from hourly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any
And
thoughts on that? Yeah.
so, I mean, I find that, again, it really depends on what the individual customer that you're looking for, because we also can customize any one of our services that people need. So if you need, we have our social media starter kit, for example, let's say. All right, so our social media starter kit will basically allow you to, as an entrepreneur, we'll teach you what we need to know, build a strategy for you for your social media, and then show you how to do it, and then send you on your way. But if there was something out of that you just needed, let's say you just needed the strategy part, we can build a strategy for you and just call it a day, right? And so from to get back to your point about price anchoring, I mean, for the types of business, when you're talking about the specifically services, it's really what the individual customer that you're trying to attract, what they are willing to pay you for the type of service you provide for them. That's how I always kind of looked at it. It's like, you tell me what you need, I'll tell you how much it will cost. You tell me if you can afford that.
And the other way to potentially look at this is how much saving or how much pain are you taking away,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and look, willing to pay is all
Relative.
relative, because if you come at approach and say, here, I've got this widget, I want to sell to you for $10,000, no. All right. But hey, here I've got this widget. It's you put it in your car and it prevents all rust for your car, and your car will never need maintenance for the rest of your life, and it costs $10,000. Okay, maybe I'm
Now we're talking, right?
now I'm a little more interested. So if you say, this can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of your, okay, now you've price anchored. Now you're, so selling and pricing are two different things, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, can you do you know when it's a sales technique or whether it's a pricing strategy that isn't working?
That's a very good question. And simply because sales techniques can be applied differently by different people. So it depends on it. And again, to go back to the whole consultant, it depends on who's doing the selling. Because if you've got a really good salesperson who's able to sell ice to Eskimos, then maybe your pricing strategy is not going to be an issue. But if the person can't really sell, you're not going to be really able to understand what the problem is with that. It actually, you could, I guess, really kind of dig that out in the survey questions, if they're willing to answer for you later on, like why they chose not to buy. And that, asking those types of questions might be able to point you in the right direction. And I mean, sometimes you could ask a really simple pointed question, is like, did you not like the salesperson you were talking to? And sometimes in some cases, that's exactly why. If the salesperson they deemed was too pushy, or didn't seem very trustworthy, or they didn't get a good feel for them, that could kill a business deal for sure, regardless of what your pricing strategy is. Right. So you just have to ask the right questions, I guess, if you're finding that you're not getting any traction. Really, at the end of the day, though, for me, try different pricing is a very dynamic thing, because you could say, you're going to give somebody a discount, let's say, and they'll buy it. But if you don't give them that 10% discount, they wouldn't buy it. And so that might put you in a position where you start to say, okay, well, what if I just had a permanent 10% discount on my price and just left it at that price, that lower price? Would I make more sales? If you do, then, giddy up. Then if someone else asks you for another discount, you say, sorry, no, I can't give you one. Right. And the other side of the other side of that coin would then be, if you're in a situation, and this is kind of a sales tactic as well, though, but if you're ever in a situation where someone says, I do not want to buy from you unless you give me a discount, I would run far away from those people simply because they only want to grind your price down to the bare minimum, and they don't really have any value for the product or service that you provide. If somebody sees the value in what you do, they more than likely, if you've got a fair price, if you priced it fairly, they will pay that price without a discount. That's just my opinion, though.
I agree, and I mean it's nothing wrong with having a discount, but
Mm-hmm.
and everyone likes one. But at the same time, we need to get into, if this is a service or a product or a subscription. Ideally, we're not just buying it once. That
Mm-hmm.
we're not always coming. Oh, I want another one, but give me 25% off. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you want customers who appreciate you and are not going to cost you more money than they're worth. Because if you're
Mm-hmm.
on the phone with them constantly negotiating versus actually delivering whatever, then what's the value there?
Yep. And the other thing is, people if they value what it is that you're doing for them, they're they're mostly reasonable, so they want to pay a fair price for it. That what they don't want is to be overcharged, right? So there's a fine balance between the two. And again, pricing your products is sometimes it's a trial and error thing. So if you think that your product is worth $1,500, price it at $1,500. But if you find that nobody's really buying it, or people are buying it, but they say, I want a 10% discount, and you start to see more people wanting to buy it at the lower price, you could technically just drop it to that lower price and call it a day and make that your new price point, and away you go. And then just keep selling, right?
Absolutely. So, there's a lot of talk about dynamic pricing, and people don't, really understand it a lot or even think about it as an option. Dynamic pricing, such as what Uber calls surge pricing. So when it's really busy,
Yeah.
they charge you more. Or same thing
Most
with,
ridiculous thing ever, but
well, we say that, but it's the same thing with hotels, same thing with house rentals, same thing with planes, getting plane tickets.
Mhm.
So the dynamic pricing, we really dislike it in Uber, but we see it everywhere else. It is generally accepted. Where else have you seen it work? Have you seen it work with any of the other small businesses and sectors that we haven't really thought of?
It's a very good question, and I
Sorry to
mean,
put you on the
no.
spot there.
Well, yeah, because you mentioned most of them where you see it most, like specifically with airlines. I mean, the cost of a seat in an airline to the airline carrier, it's all the same. But they could sell it easily for to those price aggregators, or they sell it to business class people, or they sell it to what do you call it, flight. Uh, why is his name escaping me? Um,
TripAdvisor or
yeah, those types of companies, and so it's like, or travel agencies even.
yeah.
So it's all the same price. It's a different prices for the same thing, and it's just, people have come to accept that your goal is really to drive down that price, to get it down to the lowest possible price possible, because there's probably somebody out there who may even pay less for you. Hotels are in that same vein as well. um,
And
so I
Maggie
mean,
just pointed out trains do the same thing.
yeah, it's to me, I'm oh, and actually, we may even find it at car dealerships too. um I'm of the mind that I don't want to. I mean, it's not that I don't want to negotiate, but I'd like to think that I'm going to price my product what I think is fair for my services that I provide, and the value that I'm going to provide to you. I'm not trying to haggle with you on my pricing, right? I'm giving you a fair price. I'm not trying to gouge you. That's not what we do here. You know, the price that we've chosen is what we think is a fair representation of the service we provide and the value we provide for the people that we do it for. If you do not find that is to be the case, I'm I'm not trying to haggle with you to try to get 50% off my pricing. That's just not how I roll. But if I was in the airline business, maybe I might, because I've got all these extra seats that I have to sell. It's going to cost me the same amount of money to run an empty plane as it is to run a full plane. So I'm going to do whatever I can to jam as many people in there as I can. And who cares if that's what people get mad about it. If the person beside you paid less than you did for your seat, you should have gone. You should shop where they shopped. That's the industry, the airline industry's motto, right? They don't
But
say it out loud though, but that's how they think about these types of girls. They wouldn't price them like that.
but I wouldn't be surprised to see more and more of this kind of thing happening. Saying even I don't know, physiotherapists saying our rates are cheaper on Mondays because it's a slow day.
Well,
Or
the thing about those types of services though, because they're subsidized by the government and insurance companies, it may not matter to them what day you come on. They don't really care.
And that was just maybe a bad example, but what about restaurants? Food goes up after a certain time, beer goes up
Mhm.
after a certain time. They have happy hour pricing. Some
Well,
of
so
them.
and actually that's actually a good point with the happy hour pricing. The There's a lot of companies out there were restaurants that are going to be wanting to get people to come into their establishments, or maybe not come into, but go to their patios at least, but go to their establishments because they are really hurting right now. So they may have to be in a position where they may have to slash their prices because listen, ain't nobody going to a fine dining restaurant at this point in time right now. Right. So if you want to get people in the door, you may have to start changing some of the pricing or the price or the business model that you've got even to be able to accommodate. Right.
I think you'd be surprised how many people are going out to high end restaurants right now.
Really?
I talked to a few friends of mine, and this is a side pricing, but they're going on multiple dates a week and going out to dinner. It's like I first person to mention this to me. It's like we shut down all these restaurants and we shut down all these businesses, but no one shut down the dating apps.
Well, people
I
people go on virtual dates though, right? They go on Zoom dates all the time. I
Yeah,
totally
but
get
there's a
that
lot of
part.
non-virtual dating going on, and I'm not, I don't care. Like
Mhm.
this is, but back to pricing when it gets busy. Again, restaurants now. Um, I've been a few places where oh, it's coming to dinner time. We're gonna have to ask you to kind of wrap up because they've got reservations, or because there's different type of different pricing, or expecting different people to come in because they
Mhm.
only have a certain amount of room. It's really much less than they used to have. So
Yep.
think about that kind of a strategy because there is a lot of potential there when to encourage consumer behavior.
Hmm. And you know who else probably could do stuff like that as well as the software as a service companies?
Definitely, I'd have to think of a how I would implement something like that in a SaaS company.
Yeah, but something like that would, I mean, it's probably better for a tiered pricing than anything, but their servers are your servers costs are your servers costs, right? So at that point, you could say, if you use something, if you use our product during this time of day, it's cheaper. I mean, they also do that with, the utility companies, right?
Absolutely. So let me ask you one about one of my favorites.
Hmm.
Premium pricing strategy. We always talk about loss leader, penetration pricing, getting in low, but
Hmm.
let's take the other approach. Um, having being the high price person with a quality product. How do you position your brand that way?
Um, hmm. How I would do it is, again, the concept, the strategy is still the same. You want to analyze the market and figure out what everybody else is doing, and how that's playing out. But you look at your customer base and you say, okay, you know what? If I'm a company like Lamborghini, right? I'm looking at my target audience and saying, we've got this great new car that's coming out. You do an event and figure the pricing strategy that you're going to use is going to be, let's get them in as quickly as possible and do maybe a special additional offers. So maybe you get, you get to buy your car, but we'll do a custom interior for you that isn't done for everybody else, or you'll get an extra set of rims or something that will kind of sweeten the pot for that, to make the experience more personable. And everybody wants a individual attention in that regard. So to say that you've got a custom made Lamborghini that nobody else has, that's gold, right? People want that type of that, to be able to have that type of flashy thing that's going to say, you know what, I have this thing that nobody else does. If you've got that kind of money.
And there's lots of ways to there's lots of ways to separate yourself apart, and change the landscape. We talk about professional services businesses because that was one of the good questions earlier. But why not have a premium strategy related to that? I'm just going to pick a random thing. I'm an accountant. Because they're everywhere, and they fight on price for everything. But what happens if I am the house call accountant? I come in a suit. I bring a table now because it's COVID. We sit outside. I bring coffee. We do it it's a real personalized high end experience. Now this is not necessarily a good example.
No, but again, you're giving somebody something that nobody else is getting. Right.
Yes.
And so that's the point, is that you're going, as they say, above and beyond, but above and beyond sometimes costs money.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're delivering a different service no one else would
Mm-hmm.
potentially. Cirque du Soleil is a great example of how they changed the circus industry and stripped away a lot of parts and charged a premium package,
Mm-hmm.
and set themselves apart. Like when you're looking at a premium strategy, or thinking about your pricing, think about pricing higher. I like to talk to a lot of startups who I talked to a lot of startups, and they tend to price their products too low, and think because they're a startup, they value whatever they're offering too little. And I suggest start thinking about that white glove service, because you really need to get your customers to that aha moment so that they're going to be repeat customers. They're going to love your product. They're going to spread the word.
But
And
also there's a perception of low value when it comes to low cost. So you really want to avoid that, right?
yeah, you want to avoid that, and you want to give them a good experience. And you can't give them that experience if you're giving them a low cost. You need to have better support people. You need to be in communication with them. Like if you're doing a
Mm-hmm.
SaaS thing that connects to my accounting software to give me reports, I'm not going to be happy until I'm getting the reports I want. So I want to pay more and have someone handhold me in the first couple of days to get everything integrated and get my reports printing the way I want. And once I have them, guess what? I'm not going to be bugging you anymore. But why wouldn't I charge more for that than
Mm-hmm.
saying, here's our API, go ahead and do it, and you're frustrated for 6 months working on it, but I'm only paying $49.99 a month. I mean,
Yeah.
see what you can do to differentiate yourself from the competition and have a premium strategy. This is what we do. We go that extra mile. We're on the phone with you. We have a direct line customer service. You have a direct rep, whatever it is.
Just make sure if you just got your first round of funding, you don't burn through your funding trying to build up all your customer service things and not being able to provide an actual product. That would be my one caveat with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, but my point being is, instead of charging $49.99 a month, you could probably charge $250 or $300 or $500 a
Mm-hmm.
month if you're giving people the exact thing they need in handholding, and that means you can actually hire people to do that.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
so it's, but you can't the other way around. That's why it's making sure you can really give that experience to people, and then maybe you start working on your price skimming, as you mentioned earlier. As you figure out how to automate, how do you figure out to give that experience cheaper and faster, you can start bringing that product
Mm-hmm.
line down, and maybe introducing new premium stuff. So, what do you got coming up?
We are doing our next masterclass on the 25th. And as sad as this sounds, when Candace broached the topic to me, I was like, what? We really? She's like, yeah, think about it. People are planning their marketing strategies for Christmas now.
Now, yeah.
I mean, so now would be the time, if you haven't started on your holiday marketing strategy, if you're in a position to get increased business for your holidays as well, you're a little bit behind the eight ball. The other thing is, because the first 3 quarters of 2020 were really horrible for a lot of people, trying to finish with a big flourish in Q4 is really important. So what are you going to need to do to start to get people's attention now that we're coming? I hate to say that we're coming out of this thing because we're nowhere close to that. But as businesses are starting to get kind of able to ramp up again and get back to people getting back to work, and there's a whole host of other things that come with that you need to think about.
Yeah, business is happening again. The malls seem to be full. Traffic is just as bad as it was. So yeah, we don't want to say it's
And
over,
you need to
but
figure out how not only are you going to protect your employees, but how are you going to protect your customers, right? And if you can't protect either of those, your business is not going to survive the rest of the year.
and Candace, if you're in the chat room, any chance you could throw the link to this event where people could register in the chat room, or maybe you could, Trevor?
I can do that. Let me
Because it'd
just
be easier if people knew where to go to register for it.
yeah. Let me just stop sharing here. Hang on.
And if you get that link to me, I'll send you the list of attendees, but we'll make sure that they get the information so they can
Yep.
attend.
Most definitely. Let me just grab that here. The sign up page is.
It's coming.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to work this whole chat. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, that came in.
Technology is escaping me right now.
No worries. So, tell us a little bit about before we sign off. What does Songbird Marketing Communications do, and where can people find you?
So like I said, we are a marketing and PR firm, and we help small businesses and entrepreneurs. So you can find us at our website at songbirdmarketing.com. And I think I can't even remember our Instagram and Facebook handles, but we're all over LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. You can get all that from our website at songbirdmarketing.com.
Fantastic. Thanks for taking the time today. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for everybody who came and participated. And we'll talk to you soon, Trevor.
All right. Take care. Thanks, man.